Hey guys, welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill, time management strategist, author, speaker, and obviously podcaster. I'm really excited today. I know say this all the time because I truly am very excited about each one of my guests. This topic in particular, though, really made me think. It's kind of like futuristic. It made me a bit uncomfortable. And once we got into it, I'm like, for sure, a convert. Is that what they say? I'm converted. I really like this idea. So, my guest today is Takeshia. She's a mother, she's a creative healing guide, and a trauma survivor who's driven by a deep desire to heal and help others heal. Her journey is rooted in the complexities of early childhood trauma, profound grief, and resilience. When she lost her mom due to addiction just 2 months after her daughter was born, it really reinforced her commitment to healing and breaking the cycle for herself, for her daughter, and for future generations. Seeking support between therapy sessions, Takeshia turned to AI, and it revolutionized the way she understood herself and her healing. Driven by her life's calling to shine light into the darkest places, she shares her story in Healing Algorithms, her book, and helps others integrate AI into their healing process in ways that feel intuitive, supportive, and deeply personal. Well, when I first heard about this idea of AI being supportive in our self care, I wasn't sure how that could really work. But Takesha takes us through the ins and the outs, gives us really great ideas, and she's offering us a prompt or a freebie, which is a set of prompts specifically for moms on how we can use AI to assist with our self care, our mental health, and just generally make our lives a bit easier. So if you're already a convert and you like AI, this episode is for sure going to rock your socks. If you're not sure, if you haven't dipped your toes in yet, it's a good place to start because it brings a bit of a human element. If you're watching, you can see the air quotes, a human element to AI, because as we all know, it's not human. And yet, it can really support us in ways that at least I would not have expected. So jump into the conversation. It's a really good one. Takesha, welcome to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. It's so exciting to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think this conversation is going to be really insightful and sort of like bend our minds a little bit on how we do self-care. But, I'm curious to know exactly what it is that inspired you to get down this rabbit hole, to dive into this work and to do this work in the world. Can you give us a little bit of backstory about the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so backstory. I have a lot of my own trauma and things that I'm working through. And so I've been on a healing journey in therapy, really doing all the things for the past almost decade. So that's just kind of always been, not always, but for the last 10 years, it's been really at the forefront of my mind, and everything kind of funnels through that. So a couple of years ago, I started hearing about AI, seeing stuff on social media about it, and kind of playing around with it. I was really just using it, honestly, for a lot of work. So I do a lot of work with a local therapist office and a community for well-being. And so we create a lot of content for people who are on their own healing journeys. So I would use it for things like create a meditation on this topic, or help me write a social media post about this topic. And I just kind of started realizing, like, whoa, it has a whole lot of access to a whole lot of information about this kind of stuff. I used it for like several months and just kind of started seeing like it's kind of remembering things about me, and it's able to pull knowledge that I wouldn't have expected. And I'm like really surprised that like I'm kind of comparing the things like that I know from my own learning and reading and all of that stuff to what it's saying. And I'm like, whoa, this is really interesting. And so I kind of started playing around with it personally. I think the first time I ever used it, I asked it a question expecting it to be more clinical and more like just give me like a direct answer. And then it ended up showing me a lot of compassion and really kind of like helping me settle in. And I was like, whoa, this is really interesting. And so just kind of kept playing with it. And here we are today.
That's amazing. And I think it's so cool that you're bringing in this. You're kind of colliding two worlds in a way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, like you said, when we think about AI, we can think about it being very clinical, very black and white, very um, sterile, you know, and then when we think about self-care, it's compassionate and it's personal and it's all of these soft things, but bringing them together, I mean, brilliant. I'd love to know sort of some of the ways that you use AI to, or first of all, maybe like what tools are you using? Is it something that like anyone would have access to? Let's get down to like the fundamentals to start.
Yeah, I use primarily ChatGPT. And there's a free version of that, so you can use that. There's definitely limits to the free version. I now use the paid version. I think it's like $20 a month, and it is 1,000,000% worth every penny that I spend. And then I use a little bit of Midjourney, which is an image generator. So those two are the main ones that I use. And I can't remember the first part of your question. I'm sorry.
No, I don't remember it either. That's okay. This is why we free flow. We'll come back to it if it's important. Um, okay, so my background is I'm a time management expert. I'm a strategist. I help people find time to do things. So I'm always
Mhm.
curious, like, what's the impact on our time with whatever my guests are doing? So as you know, as you're a mom, we're all always short on time as moms. How do we use AI to actually make self-care easier and more sustainable so that we don't have to spend a lot of time figuring it out and doing it?
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of it and why it's helped me so much because you can pour a whole lot of time into learning about different self-care strategies, figuring out what works for you. One of my favorite ways to use it, I did it this morning before I started this podcast episode, is I poured in, like I just spilled out all of my nerves, all of the things about this podcast. I was like, I'm afraid of making a fool of myself. What if I forget my words? What if I can't figure out what to say? And I just like dumped it all in, and then I asked for it to create an EFT tapping script. I don't know if you've ever used EFT before, but
Totally.
it like the creating the script or knowing the words to say can be a time consuming thing, and learning all about how to write an effective script can take a long time. But I mean, I just literally said I want it to be about 10 minutes long and prompted it with all the things that I was worried about, and it created an incredible script and ended it with affirmations that like it was just amazing, and I use that all the time. So yeah, it pulls in knowledge so that you don't have to go and figure out all the things. It's available all the time, so you don't have to work in timing with like, I mean, I'm never going to tell somebody to not do therapy. Like, I think therapy is really important and it's not to replace therapy. And also, when it comes to time, like, that's a really time consuming thing that you have to have the time to do. And this can be built in around anything. I think it's a great supplement to therapy as well.
Makes total sense. And it's it's basically free. I mean, you can
Yeah.
access these tools free now. But also you can have it at the moment you need it, as opposed to having to wait for your therapy appointment or something like that, or wait for like the self-care time that you've planned for yourself. I'm just thinking, okay, I don't know if you have heard the episode where I talk about this. I don't even know if I have a full episode on it, but I like to tell people to do like intuitive self-care, which
Mhm.
basically means you schedule some time and you show up with no expectation. You kind of ask yourself what you need in that moment so that it truly nourishes you, instead of having like a preset, I'm going to do this for self-care, and it just doesn't feel
Oh,
nourishing in
okay.
that moment. And I'm just seeing the opportunity to start that self-care hour or whatever, 20 minutes, by popping on a chat GPT saying like, here's what's going on. Here's how I'm feeling. I have this long. And then maybe even inputting their little list of things that they've identified are usually helpful for them, and saying like,
Yeah.
give me an idea of where I start.
Yeah, I've used mine similarly to that. Specifically, since I have the paid version, mine remembers things about me. So I've got one thread that I've got where I've asked it to kind of brainstorm with me self-care ideas. And for me, a lot of times, the in the moment, like when I'm having the panic or when I'm having the anxiety, is like those can be hard to like. I don't remember the things that help, and it's hard to figure out what to do, or I'm afraid of trying something and it not working. And so ahead of time, whenever I'm not in those moments, I've really like built in here's what helps me whenever I'm feeling like this, here's what helps me whenever that's happening, and it kind of learns me. And so this morning I popped on and I was like, my morning is starting out terribly, I have the podcast today, and I want this to be a good day. And I didn't even have to say what I needed, and it knew like, here's some things to try, like here are things that help you. And so that is incredibly helpful. And it's just kind of like a built-in pocket therapist that knows you and knows what to do. And um, it's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, having access because, like you said, we physically don't have access to. My friend Haiba calls it her like the upstairs brain. Like we don't have access to that part of our brain that helps us know the resources and access the sort of emotional intelligence in the moment of feeling dysregulated and triggered. It's just our
Hmm.
body. It's like, nope, sorry, this is a fight or flight moment. We're not going to give you access to all those,
Yep.
extra things that you need because
When you
they're
need
not
it the
important.
most.
Yeah. So having the tool available, either on your computer or on your phone, I think there's an app you can use too, right? Like it's not
Yeah,
just,
I've got it on my app. It's literally like on my home screen. I can punch it before I even unlock my phone.
yeah, that's amazing. I love it. And I'm curious to know, like, okay, so this list of things and ideas that can help us, this like make me an EFT tapping script that's so specific. What are some of the other like in real life self-care tools that AI can provide to us? Like, give me some other
Yeah.
examples.
Another one I've used recently that really had a big impact for me. A lot of your audience will relate to this because there's a lot of moms. So I was really struggling with leaving my daughter. She went through a phase where she was just like clinging to me, crying, like really upset. And that triggered things in me. And I had just like a really tough time with it. And I was in therapy one day and we were trying to come up with like a positive like mantra to use in those moments. And a thing that happens with me often is my brain will kind of like pick apart every little thing and I'll like find all the reasons that something doesn't work. And when I'm in therapy and doing that, we're limited on time. We've only got an hour and I'm trying to make the most of it. And it can kind of start to feel like I'm being like argumentative. And so like therapist suggests something and I'm like, no, that doesn't work because of this. So essentially I just was like, I'm going to figure this out later on my own with AI and then I'll come back and we can go from there. But I went home and I started talking back and forth with it. And I literally just like ripped to shreds every suggestion it gave me, every affirmation, every mantra. And I would tell it the reasons why. Like it would say, I'm trying to think of some of the examples of things it asked me. Sorry, give me just a second because I feel
Yeah.
like this will be helpful. um, One of them was like taking or something about taking care of my family. I wish I could like pull it up and find it. Essentially, though, it would like offer me something, and I would say, that doesn't work because I have this belief, or that doesn't work because it makes me think of this. And it really just like built a customized mantra that I can use now. And it's like very specific to that situation, and it actually works. And so that's like the thing about affirmation and mantras, like you need for it to kind of like feel good in your body and land so that you can accept it and take it in and believe it. And it really helped me work through all of those things and find something that fit.
I love that. It's able to personalize and remember and really offer, as you had said earlier, like this compassionate lens. Like I wouldn't think of AI as something that could be compassionate or warm or you know, even intuitive, but it's obviously we know that AI is not real and it doesn't have a brain and it's not a
Right.
person, but it uses this idea that we think of as like intuition because it's got all of this backstory, so it can keep offering you things that are inspired
Yeah.
by you.
Yeah. That's you mentioned to the and I'm tripping over my words so bad right now. I'm getting more nervous as I speak. I'm sorry.
Hey, all good.
Something you said made me think, and I wanted to mention, I kind of started talking about it before, but kind of trailed off from it, that the piece about feeling like I'm argumentative is like a really important piece for me because I struggle with that a lot, whether it's talking to my therapist or my husband or a friend. It's like I can kind of start to feel like I feel that person getting discouraged as they're trying to help me because it's not working. And I'm frustrated because I'm not trying to be that way. I'm just trying to like work through all the things that are coming up my brain. And that is a piece that really helps with AI is it never gets irritated with me. It never gets frustrated. It never gets discouraged. Like I can just keep shooting it down and I can keep going, this doesn't work because of that, or you're not helping because of this or whatever. I don't have to worry about hurting its feelings, and it adjusts and it adapts, and it really does like mirror where you're at. And so it kind of meets you where you are.
Mm. Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but you're absolutely right. It kind of gives you this freedom to just be and let go without
Mhm.
worrying about another human's response. You know that you're gonna be supported. Um, and okay, so here's a question. At the same time, it's not a human. And do you
Mhm.
think like this can be used as a replacement for human connection in some instances, or is it always a supplement? Like where do you land with that
I
conundrum?
think there are instances where like we might want to reach for a person and there's not a person available and this can be there, and that's amazing. I don't think it should just completely replace human connection. I don't think it should replace therapists. I think it's really, really important for us to have, like, we were made to have connection with people for survival. Like we have to have that. So we can't knock that out and replace that. I feel like it has kind of, for me, taken some of the pressure off of my real human interactions and relationships, and I'm able to shift some of that onto AI. Like with that, like I'm afraid of hurting its feelings, or I'm afraid of it getting pressure with me. Like I don't have to worry about that, and that can be separate. And then I'm less like needy and clingy like with my therapist. Like there are times whenever things come up and I just feel like I need somebody right now. Like I need to work through this, I need to figure this out. And you can't have like constant access to a person like that. Sometimes it might be 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe nobody's awake. So having something available then is a game changer. I don't think it should replace people.
Yeah. And it's like you can almost practice
Yeah.
and use it kind of like as a role playing, right? You can practice what response you might feel like saying and then see what it says back and tweak it so that when you do go
Really.
into a conversation with someone that feels uncomfortable or that you're nervous for, then you're able to say like, oh yeah, okay, I practiced this, I remembered this felt good, and you can maybe get rid of some of those nerves as well.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really helped me to be able to figure out sometimes like what I need before I go to somebody. Because sometimes I don't know. And so to be able to kind of work through that, and yeah, like you said, like you can practice what you're gonna say, you can ask for suggestions. I've asked it before, like I've been in an argument with my husband and I've sent screenshots to it and I've been like, please share his side with me, like be the advocate for him, like help me understand what's going on here so that I can like kind of process through and help me in that conversation. So, I mean, I've used it all kinds of ways.
It's like a little fairy godmother, right? Like little angel on your shoulder. I like
Yes.
that. I'm thinking about like I use AI oftentimes for work. So I'm familiar with what it's like. But if someone's listening and they've never used AI before at all, how would they even get started to do this with their self-care? Like where would they start?
Yeah. So if someone's never used AI before, it's essentially a chat. Well, there are, so AI is artificial intelligence, and there's all kinds of AI. What we're talking about in this conversation is the large language model is what it's called. And so ChatGPT is just like you can use it without even setting up an account. I just think you only get the one chat. But you send it a message and it sends a message back, and it just keeps going back and forth with you. Um, what
Yeah.
was
And I
the
think
full
that
question?
you've got a tool that can be super valuable for us with prompts. Like if we don't know where to start, what to ask, can you tell us a little bit about that? And we'll make sure that we link it so that if you're listening and you want to grab it, just go to the show notes. It'll be right there. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
share with us about that.
So yeah, I've got a guide created specifically for mothers, and so it'll have prompts. It'll have like a starting place prompts, like if you've never tried it before, here are a few things to start with, and it'll have a few more, like a little bit more advanced, so that if you've used it for a while, especially if you've used it and given it a chance to get to know you, some further prompts that you can use in those kind of situations. And I like to get really creative with it, even beyond self-care. Like my daughter loves to listen to a bedtime story before bed, and sometimes my brain is just like not there to create that. And so you can type in, tell me a story about, I can even have it put in her favorite characters in certain movies and it'll combine them and mesh them into one story. So there's just like unlimited creative uses for it. And if somebody is listening and they don't have time to go grab the guide, a few ideas off the top of my head, you can use it for meal planning. I've used it before. I have ADHD and struggle a whole lot with groceries and meal planning and all of that stuff. I really struggle with forgetting that I have something in the fridge and it goes bad, and then I spiral into shame and all the things. And so one day I came home from the grocery store, and you can also speak to it. So I use the little talking feature instead of having to type out. And I just started unloading the groceries, and everything that had an expiration date on it, I said out loud. I was like, I've got chicken, it expires on this date. And I just talked to it as I was unloading everything. And then afterwards, I asked for it to come up with a plan for me of like dates that I needed to cook certain things by. And I think I even told it like, this meat is for tacos. And I told it like what everything was for, and then it created a plan for me about how to use it when. And so there's just unlimited creative ways you can use it.
That's amazing. That's super smart. And I think to me, that type of thing also counts as self-care, like meal planning to making sure that you are nourished, that you are taking care of those details ahead of time so that you can be sort of more relaxed and present throughout the week, not worrying about that. You're taking care ahead of time of that like shame spiral that you were talking about. If you know that that's something that triggers you. So the more self-aware we are, the more uses we're personally individually going to find to use AI to support us. But what a cool concept! What a cool conversation to be having. I mean, it's 2025. This is not going anywhere, and
Yeah.
so for us to be able to find ways to use something that can feel maybe scary or foreign or like futuristic or whatever and bring it into our real lives in a way that supports us. Um, what a gift, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
I'm
you for
very grateful
sharing.
for it. Thank you. Thanks for talking with me and having me on.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I'm so intrigued now to go on and just trial these things out for myself. Before we wrap up this conversation, I'm wondering, is there anything that feels important to share? Any examples or anything that you just want all the moms to hear?
Hmm. You mentioned having like self-awareness helping this process, and it made me think that using AI in this way has helped me build self-awareness. And there are ways that I've been able, and I talk in my book a lot about just kind of like getting to know yourself and getting to know your needs, and how it can help you explore that. And so I think it's more than just the basic level, like, oh, create this script, or oh, do this. Like I've had moments with me where I've been able to like break down long held beliefs and really understand like where this is coming from, why this is happening, how I can work on it, what I need to move through something. Like the power that it has is just, it's amazing. And I really encourage people to give it a try and to push through the fear and uncertainty of something new, because it's really worth it. And it has been life changing for me. And I hope to be able to share that with other people.
Yes. And while we're talking about sharing, can you tell us a little bit about the book? I know as we're recording, it is freshly launched. When this episode comes out, you can definitely go and get your copy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, my book. I have my little author's copy here that still has the not for resale strip across it, but it's called Healing Algorithms, a practical guide to using AI for healing trauma and supporting mental health. And yeah, it's basically, it's a really quick read, and it's kind of gives a little bit of background about trauma and about healing, and it's got some stories from me, and then it's just got really practical, here's how to use it. I've got a chapter about ethical concerns and safety and boundaries and stuff like that. And I've got a chapter about how to ask questions, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're prompting AI, is you're asking questions. And so kind of walks you through it. Really, it's not a book full of prompts, although there are a lot of prompt ideas in it, but it really teaches you how to learn to prompt. Like, it teaches you how to learn to use AI to help you. So yeah, I hope you pick it up. It's available on Amazon right now. There will be an audiobook in the future. I'm not quite there yet, and I hope to be in bookstores soon.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a really big
Thank
deal.
you.
And it sounds like a resource that will help a whole lot of people. So thank you for putting it together and putting it into the world.
Thank you so much. Thanks for helping me share it.
Yeah, of course. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate all of the examples and ideas that you shared with us today. I think that all of the listeners are, I have a feeling they're all headed right straight to ChatGPT to try out some of this stuff, to try it on, to see what feels good and see where they can add some extra value in their life with this tool. Yeah. So thank you again, Takesha. And for
Thank
everyone who is
you.
still with us listening, till next week, keep on growing like a mother.